Are you ready? So for the second part, the presentation will be sort of a continuity of what we saw earlier, and you'll see the different parallel between both. But for the second part of the presentation, we'll talk about the Vue.js template. How does the Vue.js template transforms into actual HTML in your browser? So first of all, hi, I'm Tommy. Nice to meet you all. A quick word about me. I made my first website with front page 97. It was a website optimized for Internet Explorer 4. So I'll let you do the calculations for, yeah. No Netscape. I mean, it's just front page. You know, Microsoft loves Microsoft, I guess. But thanks God, things have changed now, and I'm now a front-end consultant, and I'm obsessed with Vue since 2016, and that's what we're talking today. Don't worry. Some participation tips for this one. Please ask your question as they come. No worries about that. And these slides are going to be made public on Vue Montreal website. I'll probably send a message to everyone when everything is online for what you saw in the first presentation and this one. So from Vue.js template to HTML tag, how does it work? But most importantly, why should I care about that? Because, I mean, Vue is such a bliss to use. Like, if you use Vue in your day-to-day life, you mean, Vue is easy to use, and you just code your feature in a very natural and easy way and get done with your day. Basically, it's like driving your dream car every day. But sometimes it's interesting to know like how the car works inside. So why should I care? Most devs are fine with just going on with their days, but not you. Because you, of all people, took time to come here tonight and learn about the inner working of your favorite framework, or soon-to-be favorite frameworks for those who maybe haven't tried it yet. Because you want to understand the matrix. You want to understand how things work behind the scene. And yeah, either that or maybe you're just here for the beer. I don't know. I see a few people agree with that. Okay, okay. But please stay with us. But there will be beer after this talk until 8:30. Just putting that out there. So the point is, so sometimes things don't go exactly as we expect with your car or with maybe your app in our case. And it's actually not more than fun, but it's very important to be able to debug your car and not look like this guy here who's trying to, I don't know what he's trying to do, but something's wrong with his engine and I'm not sure that's the right way to fix it. So you don't want to be this guy. You really want to at least have an understanding of what's going on under the hood of the technology you're using. So these are really the reason why the talk before, just that we had before by Florent, go back in his code and check how he did it. You will really learn a few good things about your framework. So let's dive in. First of all, I want to clarify a few things. In Vue, we have templates that are either in the HTML per se, so you have HTML page and you can have your template there. But you can also have a Vue file. So those who have done Vue on a daily basis, most of the time you use a .vue file. That is a single file component, SFC for short. And this contains three things, at least. But normally, three things. You have the template that we will talk about today. We have the script section and the style section. So we won't talk about those two, but we'll talk about the template in the context of a Vue file. So quiz. I have a question for you. So we have a simple Vue template here. So the question is this W3c compliant HTML. So W3c is the World Wide Web Consortium that give the HTML5 specs. So it really looks like HTML5. Anyone says that's compliant? Anyone says that's not compliant? Anyone do not want to vote? Okay, good. So it's not compliant. It's not actual real HTML that the browser can digest and work with. We see how all the errors are basically the Vue things, Vue attributes, v4, the v4, the v key, click, and so on. So these things cannot work on their own. So we are going to learn how Vue takes this template and turns it into HTML5 that your browser can display. So in conclusion, the Vue.js template are really HTML based. They look like HTML. That's why Vue is very easy to pick up on when you start with Vue, but they're not actual DOM-ready HTML. We saw the DOM in the previous talk, and actually, like, he talked about it, but I just wanted to make sure a quick definition of DOM. I will also talk about virtual DOM and the actual real DOM. So the DOM, if we have a quick definition here, the DOM is the data representation of the objects that comprise the structure and content of a document. So basically, if you ever had the pleasure to use in JavaScript document.something, basically you were working with the DOM object. So the DOM object will contain your actual page, like HTML, tag, head, body, and so on. So that's what Vue will come and modify according to whatever specification you ask him to. And we'll see how that happens today. Okay, so how does Vue.js manage to transform templates into actual HTML? First of all, we need to understand the Vue file compilation process. So we have the Vue file I mentioned earlier that contains our templates. And this Vue file will be processed by Webpack. So that's the first step that's happening. It's all taken care of by Webpack. Webpack, anybody heard that before? Cool. And maybe for those who got into Vue when we already had Vue CLI, CLI version 3, maybe you don't know much about it because now it's obfuscated, it's under the hood when you start your Vue project. So you don't really care about Webpack, but if you are curious about it, you could do with your Vue CLI, Vue inspect, and it will dump you the whole Webpack configuration. And from that configuration, you can use, like I mentioned here, Vue config.js file to change it a bit, to add stuff of your own. We'll see later how that plays in. Okay, so we have Webpack. Webpack will do a lot of things. He's the maestro, he's orchestrating everything. So one of the things he's going to do when he encounters a Vue file, it will ship it to Vue Loader. Vue Loader has a job to do, which is to split this Vue file into its different components. First of all, it will extract the script tag, parse it, do whatever it has to do with it, pass it back to Webpack. Then it will do the same with the style tag in your Vue file, and finally with the template tag. That's what we are looking at today. The template tag will be compiled by the vue-template-compiler. Getting closer to our goal now. So once the Vue Loader has finished its job, it passes back to Webpack that will do final stuff like optimization of CSS, of JavaScript bundle, maybe tree shaking, minification of your code, and so on. And the last step will be to have the bundle written in your distribution folder. And at this point, it's the end. You're ready to take your files and ship them to your servers so that your clients can use your app. So that's the high level view what's going on with the compilation process. Now let's look at this green box there. What's going on when the Vue template is being compiled? So we have our green box. And after actually, when Vue template compiler starts, the first thing it will do, let's say we pass it this very simple template. We have a v-for, we have a button here with a click. So we pass it this template, and the first thing it's going to do is going to convert that into an AST. AST stands for Abstract Syntax Tree, and it's really a thing in compilers in general. We have an example here. There's a thing called the Vue AST Explorer. You have the link here. You can enjoy it. I think if I do that, you can enjoy it at home, play with it. You see the end result on here, the right. It's pretty small. Doesn't matter much right now, but I will just tell you, like, for instance, you have everything is split out into object. It describes my template as an object. And this is what the Vue compiler will use to make its render function. We talked about render function in the first talk. So render functions will be made with that. And actually, basically for AST, that's the common ground between any type of templates that you could use in Vue. So if maybe you've seen that, but you can use JSX, which is the React template syntax, with Vue. So what it does, the JSX would interpret that and produce the AST, and then we're good. We can ship it to the renderer, and we're gonna get the render function. So talking about that, that's the last step. There's only 2 steps. That's pretty cool. Convert the AST into render function. So we have the AST, and those render function, we mentioned it a bit earlier in the first talk. Render functions is a function that returns virtual DOM, as simple as that. And now, virtual DOM, we talked about it in the first talk also. It's a lightweight JavaScript data structure that represents what the actual DOM should look like at a given point in time. So these are key concepts to understand how Vue works inside. And from that, we have an example here. There's also, like you see here, the Vue Template Explorer. Vue Template Explorer is similar to the previous one. You can just play with it. You put your template here, and you will get the render function. So see here, it's a bit cryptic. I told you we're gonna decode the matrix. It's pretty much that here. It's the minified code, if you could say. We see some functions here. The render function in Vue all have the C_C function. I put a note below here that that stands for create element. It's basically a function that creates V nodes, virtual DOM nodes. And inside of that, we have other functions like L here. Remember, we have the loop here, the v-for 5 times. So we find this 5 there too. So we have others like v and stuff like that. So if you want to know what these are, I put the link here to the actual GitHub repo of Vue. And we can see, it's probably too small, but the L stands for render list. So that's, as soon as you have a v-for, it's going to use this function, pass it whatever you have in your Vue, and go on with that. So it's very interesting, actually, to look at this GitHub repo. Actually, it's the Vue.js GitHub repo. It's a good experience if you're a dev to look at good code. It's very well done, and you can learn a ton of things looking at it. I had some fun preparing this talk, actually, digging into the code. So now, we're pretty much complete. So we have our Vue file compilation process. We just saw what was going on in there. And then, yeah, we're ready for to go in the browser with our JavaScript and CSS files. So what happened when you're in the browser? So first time you run your app, we're going to have what we call the initial render. So the initial render, basically, it's to start your Vue app. So it will go at the entry point you specified in your main.js usually. So you have your new Vue instance like this, and that will trigger the Vue engine, if we can say so. So first of all, it will execute the render function, and from that, the render function will return the virtual DOM we talked about. And from the virtual DOM, Vue will change the actual DOM, and voila, you have your app up and running. So next, also as we saw in the previous talk, then we have subsequent updates. So if your page, your app will change, you will receive clicks, you will receive information from your APIs and stuff like that. So when something happens, Vue will execute the render function again, and it will render a new virtual DOM. And that's the key. That's what also Florent showed in his code. There's a diff being made between the new DOM and the old DOM. And the result of that will be applied into the actual DOM. So the minimum amount of modification will be made in the actual DOM. And there you go. You have a reactive app with Vue. Not to confuse React app, but reactivity in Vue is a thing. So that's it. You have it. You have your HTML that came from your template. I want to also to suggest you this talk. Actually, if you want to know more about the SFC, single file components, watch this talk. It's from Ivan Yu. Ivan Yu is the founder of Vue.js. And you see it's 2017, but it's pretty intemporal like, information. It really goes on the basics of how he built Vue, basically. And that's very interesting to understand the engine you're working with in your everyday life. So now, I prepared a very small demo for you, and it will be about how to modify templates at compilation time. So it's not a thing that's super well documented. I saw it in a talk. I looked at way too many talks. But one guy was doing this thing that I will show you. It actually can be very interesting. I put the link here if you want to look at the code later on. But we'll go, I guess, here. And maybe here too, actually, yeah. So I made a very simple Vue project. So I used Vue CLI. I said Vue new project. And that's basically it. And I added a few things. So there's there's still the hello world here. So the thing I want to, the goal I want to attain is the following. Sometimes we have end-to-end testings. We should have them all the time. But anyone have end-to-end testing at their job? Yeah, yeah. I see it. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. We kind of try to do it, but okay. Say you have some. There's one tool is Cypress that I like. I even have a sticker on my computer. But Cypress is one of the tools. You can use Selenium or whatever, doesn't matter in this case. But if you use one of those tools, one of the good or best practice, actually you have pretty dark, but you have the link here. It's the Cypress documentation. You can go there, read that. It will tell you that if you want to get hooks on your app, so let's say you load your app, you want to enter the name, the username, the password, and so on, you can add to be like the best practice, like to avoid having avoid binding yourself on classes that might change in some future devs. They say you should have a data test like this and put there a name. That's going to be your hook for the everything okay? All right. And that's going to be the hook for your Cypress or your Selenium or your whatever end-to-end test. So if you have those here, it's pretty cool. But the only thing is these end up in production code too by default. So it will work on dev, you do your Cypress thing, but as soon as you pass to production. Usually you pass the test and you don't need those. But by default, you will end up with those in your final bundle. So how can we remove those for when we build the production build of your Vue code? So that's what we're going to do. And it's rather simple. The thing you have to do is, first of all, listen to this talk. So now you know that vueconfig.js file exists and allows you to change the Webpack config. So in there, you can do such a thing like go address the view loader that we also saw earlier, and then tap into the option property of the view loader. So in my demonstration, I put some comments quickly, like the first 2 lines are just to cancel the cache because Vue CLI has a very strong caching mechanism, and to test, it was very annoying to have it, so I just removed it. So you can discard that if you're really doing something in production. So the code that matter is here. Let's say for your build, if we are in production mode, I will go and add some compiler options. Compiler options are, I put every links you need to see to understand what's going on. So you put your compiler options here. There's one thing called modules. By default, it seems to be always empty, so I just initiate it here, empty array. And I will push what's called here a post transform node. I give it my function that's called remove data test. So these hooks, there's a few of them. It's pretty obscure, actually. You really have to go in the code to see what's available. It's really not much documented, but they say you can use it, so I guess it's pretty okay to use them because they use it heavily in the template compilation. So in my case, I have a very simple remove data test function that's over here. I put some console log just to see what's going on for debugging and demonstration purpose. But it's very simple. So that receive a node. It's actually a virtual DOM node. And it's basically it's also like what it contains. It will contains many things. I mean, I put the debugging so you can see what's going on in there. But one of those things is the attributes, ATTRs, that you can go on and temper with, like change whatever you want. And what I do here, I filter every attributes and remove anything that contains, that is data test. So from that, you end up with a code that has no data test in it. So if we can have a quick look, if we go back here, I think if I run a build here. First of all, maybe I can show you the cool with this mic. Let's serve it first. Whoa, not my computer, sorry. Let's serve it. And come in, click that. Like this. So here, so now I'm in the development or test case, and I do have my data test attributes here. So these will work for my end-to-end testing, my Cypress, or whatever. Now, going back here, we'll close this one. Let's say, oops, uh-oh. Oh, no? Okay. Let's do a build, simple build here, and that will compile using my function that we just saw. So see here, usually you have nothing here, but my post transform node, remove data test, it takes every single node, goes down the list, hello world, blah, blah, blah. Everything is there, so it parses everything. And in the end, produce my bundle in my distribution. And if we want to look at it, we'll run the HTTP server on distribution. So that's going to run the distribution build right there. And if we look here, voila, we don't have the data test anymore there. So these are removed, and you could think of anything else. Yeah, you can do actually a lot of things. I would advise not to do do crazy things there, because you could have funky stuff going on debugging there. But it's very interesting to know that this exists. Right now, this is the best use I found. If you find any other good use, I'm curious to know about them. So on that, I'm going to go back here. Yeah, basically, that's a wrap. Any questions? Yes.
So you say
Yeah.
so you kind of just one, right?
Yeah.
Have more than one of these points where have this
Good point. Actually, there's no strategy, there's no naming strategy right there, but you could think of one. So maybe have like some prefix of some sort, depending on the different component. Yeah, you have an idea? Go ahead. Yeah. An idea, yeah.
Cypress always
Mm.
and if you mean about the you just count any like you want to learn or you want that just depend on
Yeah. And also just to say Cypress has a very good documentation. The best practices, they go on those topics too, so it's really worth the read. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Okay. Yeah. Well, you talk in the context of end-to-end tests. Let's say you want to target. Hmm? On the open list, right? So you click the list open. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh no, okay. You won't be able to put your data test inside that list since you do not. Okay, okay. So the question is, I have a library of components that's not mine, and I want to target a component inside of it. So one thing you could do, it depends, I guess, on the library, but usually if you put data tests on your field, so you have a, let's say, Vuetify field, v-autocomplete, so you can put right there a prop there. It depends of the component, but it might just show up on your component. Usually it can be put there. So yeah. But so okay, so at first you need a hook on that field, and then you will have to do some selector that will dig at the right place, basically. So that would be the way to go from what I see. Yeah. Yeah. But it, yeah. So yeah. So let's say you clicked, it opened the list. So the list is there, it's in the DOM. But to address it, you will really have to hook yourself on the parent. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it depends exactly what you want to test. But ideally, yeah, you would take maybe, I don't know if it's LI lists. You would take, I don't know, maybe the first one or whatever strategy or what you want to test. The content changes? Okay. Okay, well, I mean, but there's definitely a solution, and like you said, yeah, Cypress, one of its very good things with it is that it will wait for it. You can set timeouts and stuff, but it really will be able to wait. Any other questions? I saw, yep. Oops. Uh, yeah, those custom measurements. Yeah, but I mean, these are, like you say, they're just not allowed, like on div. I can put it bigger here. Seems to be still being a thing. But maybe you're talking about web components then, or web components? Yeah, they will be ignored usually, but I would say HTML5 per se, like you do have the link here. Oops, at the bottom. I put the link. Just try it out. You'll see it's pretty strict on what it wants. But actually, if you put your template, it will kind of render, but of course it will never loop, it will never do anything. It will just be as is on the screen. But yeah. But yeah. 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 More flexible, but not infinitely flexible for sure. Yeah, there's limit. But the thing is, today's browser will manage so many things way much better than the old browsers. So you kind of can get away with it. So it won't complain on the screen, but it's really like more of a almost a thought exercise to validate your HTML5. I'm pretty sure nobody validates their HTML5 on a daily basis here. Anyone doing that? It's just a strange. It's a thing my teacher in CJEP wanted me to do all the time, so I get maybe that stuck with me. But yeah, it's just that it's to be by the book, like saying, and also the idea was to understand that your template is really not ready for DOM. Like there's something happening in between. Something. Yeah. 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 You're so right on that. I cannot agree more because that's the thing. Like, that's another thing. But like, computer science always evolves towards like you have to know less and less and less and less. So, and with those frameworks, it's the same thing. Like, you don't need to understand binary or any like assembly code or whatever. Now, it's like just so much fun. Oh, that's a whole talk person. Oh yeah, it goes all around. But maybe okay, well, it's a bit ebb and flow. But we could argue that these component based library are really getting closer to the web component standard, trying to be a standard. Most probably, we will need a library because it doesn't. I don't know. In the standard, it doesn't do like loops and stuff like that. It's just a component. But and we're not there yet. But yeah, so we're getting somewhere. Like everybody still seem to converge towards some goal. Like, but yeah, we'll see what happened with that. Any other? Awesome. Thank you.